We are taking notes on writing and solving inequalities. So first we're going to write out all of the different types of inequalities you guys are going to see. So the first one, we're going to write A and then an arrow basically pointing at A and B. Got the arrow pointing the other way. Go ahead and draw this chart on your piece of paper. And we're going to be writing all of these into words. Hopefully you guys have seen this before. So this first one, we've got the arrow pointing at A, or if you like to look at it as a Pac-Man, Pac-Man is eating B. So since Pac-Man eats the bigger one, its A is less than B. So B would be the bigger one there. For this one, Pac-Man is eating A, so its A is greater than B. And you always read it from left to right. This is an equal sign with a slash through it, so its A is not equal to B. You'll see this one less in this unit than the others. For this one, Pac-Man is eating B, but we also have a line underneath it. That line underneath it means that it's less than or equal to. So they could be the same number, or A could be less than B. For the next one, it's the same thing, but since Pac-Man is eating A, its A is greater than or equal to B. For the next chart, we're going to be doing some examples. So I'm typing out these words just so that they're easier to read because I know my handwriting's not always the best. Typing is also hard. So we're going to have a word section, an algebra section, and a graphing section. So this one says x is all real numbers less than 2. So to write that out as an algebra, like in algebra words, it's x is less than 2, so the arrow was eating 2 since that's the biggest number in the sequence. Then we're going to graph it, so we're drawing a number line. And make sure the number that you're graphing is on that number line, so we need to make sure that 2 is on there. And we're going to write numbers to the left and right of it. So I just went from -2 to +5. And for graphing it, we're going to draw an open circle because it's not equal to, it's just less than. So we signify that with an open circle, and then the arrow is pointing to the left, which is the less than value. So it's pointing towards the smaller numbers, which are left on the number line. The next one says x is all real numbers greater than -3. So this one is saying that x is greater. So that means that Pac-Man is going to be eating x. There's no line underneath it because we did not say equal to. Then we're going to graph it by drawing a number line again. And our number line is going to have an open circle again because we don't have an equal to sign underneath. So it's just the arrow without an equal sign underneath. And we're going to be pointing towards the greater values. So that's going up on the number line, which is to the right. The next one says x is all real numbers less than or equal to 0. So we write that with Pac-Man eating 0 and a line underneath it to signify that it can be equal to 0. Then we're going to draw our number line with numbers to the left and right of 0. So we're going -2 to +2. I'm going to close my circle by coloring it in. And then since we're doing less than values, that means that our arrow goes to the left because those are the lesser values. -1 is less than 0. The next one says that x is all real numbers greater than or equal to 1. So this time Pac-Man is eating x, and it's going to have a line underneath it because it says that it can be equal to. So it's either going to be greater than 1 or it's equal to 1. It can't be both, but it is x is one or the other. So when we draw it, we're going to have Pac-Man eating x and a line underneath it to show that it can be equal to. When we draw our number line again, numbers to the left and right of 1, we're going to have a closed circle pointing to the right because that's where the values are greater than. Now we're going to move on to the next section. So go ahead and separate your paper. We're going to be writing inequalities in words. So I'm going to give you a word problem, and then you guys are going to have to write it as an inequality. After it's typed, try to write it on your own before you see what happens next on the video so that you can see whether you're getting them right or not. So the instructions for this section are to write inequalities to represent statements. So if it says that on your homework, this is what you're doing. I'm typing these out again just to be a little more efficient and to save us some time since I write pretty slow. So the temperature outside, T, is less than 90 degrees. I was trying to find the degrees symbol, but I couldn't find it. So to draw this, we're going to write T, and then it's going to be less than 90. So Pac-Man is going to be eating 90 because that's the bigger thing. The next one says the cost of a ticket, C, will be more than 50. So this time C is going to be more than, which means greater than. So Pac-Man is going to be eating C. The next one says your grade, G, should be at least a 70. So think about whether you think at least means bigger than 70 or smaller than 70. So if you want at least a 70, that means you want like a 75 or an 80 or an 85. All of those numbers are greater. So Pac-Man is going to be eating G, but it can also be equal to 70. So we draw that line underneath it. The next one says your teacher's age, A, is no less than 23. So no less than is basically saying it cannot be less than, which means it has to be greater than. It also means it can be 23. So that means that we're going to have the equal sign underneath it. So we got Pac-Man eating A, so A is greater than or equal to 23. The next one says the amount of rainfall this week, R, will be at most 3 inches. So think about whether you think at most means more than or less than. It's saying that 3 inches is the most. So that means it needs to be less than 3 or it can be equal to, since 3 is the most. So to write that out, we're doing R is less than or equal to 3, which means Pac-Man's going to be eating 3, and it also has an equal sign underneath it. The final example says the amount of cookies you can eat, C, is no more than 10. So no more than 10. If your mom tells you you can have no more than 10 cookies, that means that you have to have less than 10, but you can't have equal to 10 cookies. So 10 would be pushing it the limit with your mom. So we're writing again, C is less than or equal to 10. And then I'm just going to reformat this page just to make it a little nicer looking. And there's the full page if you want to pause and copy down anything you missed.